out. Of course, it's time to take a look at of course, what's making the headlines on the front pages of the newspaper now. But let's get started now. I have Mr. Kola Alakpene. He's an international human rights lawyer. He joins me here in the studio now. As usual, thank you, and it's good to have you back in the studio today. But let's begin from, of course, the first newspaper, which, of course, this day of record. Let's look at some of the biggest stories there, which, of course, very interesting one today as we take a look at them. This one says, standing ovation for Oramah, nation confers him grand commander. And of course, if you take a look at some of the writers, Dangote, Africa can rise through value addition to raw materials. Say lack of electricity, policy somersault, hampering industrialization. Elumelu attests to improvement in investment climate across continent. That's the biggest one on the front page of this day. Well, Ganduje's push, Rivers reconciliation signal Tinubu's emerging strategy for 2027 presidential race. Let's take a look at some of the rider there, which says the chairman's exit paves way for Kwakwansu's imminent return to APC as analysts see a Kano, Rivers, Lagos move. Well, Vice President now, well, in play. Well, I think let's begin. I think we need to begin just from the Ganduje's resignation and looking at the fact that there's a push for that. He's already resigned, and of course, we're seeing a push by the president, reconciliation in Rivers State, what's going on. But let me just, do you think this is political mathematics, if you want to consider or want to put it that way, ahead of 2027, given what is going on? Reconciliation River, we're seeing resignation by the chairman of the APC, Ganduje, and now we're seeing the acting chairman emerging from the same state, Northeast. So how do you react?
Well, there's obviously a political realignment.
Okay.
One thing our people, our citizens are not used to is seeing people resigning. We usually have sit-down tight rulers. Right. So when someone tenders a resignation, it makes news. Abroad, this is not unusual. I mean, if you mess up or your party is not performing as expected, you expected to tender a resignation. You saw several resignations in the British system when Labour was trying to get there, and you had the Conservatives and all. So this is normal in societies where things work efficiently. Our society is abnormal.
Right.
We just do things the opposite way, especially when it's political. Regarding Kwankwaso coming back to APC, you know that Kwankwaso used to be the former boss of Ganduje, and then they fell out.
Right.
So that pond is not going to contain both fishes, at least not with Ganduje in a directing position or a position where he's able to influence key emergers. The president is strategizing for Kano. Where do you have the biggest votes when it comes to presidential elections? You have Lagos State, you have Kano State, and of course you have Rivers. Who controls Rivers, in a sense, controls the treasure base of the country. Okay, so the president is positioning himself to make sure that allies are the ones who emerge in these places. Abuja is not so. Historically, most residents of Abuja usually reject the president. So because Abuja has this national flavor, people from everywhere, and they're more discerning, and that's the president's backyard. Is able to see. They're able to see him clearly if he's performing or not. And Abuja's. The votes from Abuja might not bring the president in, but it's an indication of how the president is doing. So if if a president wins Abuja, he wins a pass mark, as in he's doing something well. His constituents, where he works every day, are able to rate him. But, you know, Abuja has never really decided who has become president of Nigeria. It's always been Kano for the population, whether it's real or not, because there's always been doubts as regards the population of the north.
Right.
But yeah, I can attest that Kano is a hugely populous place. I'm a frequent visitor there. Lagos, of course. The president lost Lagos in the last elections at presidential level.
Right.
And then you've got River State.
Well, there's also a twist to that, to this development, and that's because let's go to Saturday Tribune. That it has the story which says that Shetima's fate on shore as Ganduje loses out in APC power play. Although some other headlines say that he was forced to resign. But the twist is about the vice president. Seeing that now we're having the acting national chairman of the APC come from the same state, Borno, where the vice president, you know, comes from. And so some are saying, well, perhaps this again is a way to sideline him or to replace him in 2027. How do you react to this twist and power play within the APC ahead of the 2027?
Yeah, the party chairman is acting. It's not permanent. And in politics, a week is a long time.
Yeah.
So 2027 is still a long time to go. Well, until a few weeks ago or a few months ago, the president's son was more seen than the vice president. And everybody, you know, the public, there was an outcry that the vice president has been sidelined. It seems to be absent, and you just see him at ceremonial events. I think we analyzed it on your show a couple of weeks ago as well. Well, is Northeast important to the president? That would be the defining question, and that would show how who emerges if the president is going to appoint him the second time or not. If the Northeast is not that important, if they're not going to deliver the votes, it could go into alliance with another region. The important thing is who delivers the goods. You don't play this kind of high-level politics.
Perhaps this is why Kwankwaso has also been, fingering the whole process.
Because Kwankwaso is from the Northwest. Yeah. And he is a major mover in the Northwest. The Kwankwasia movement is very strong. Does the vice president have that kind of strong leverage from the Northeast? Those are the questions that the presidential think tank policymakers are going to be looking. If he delivers the Northeast, are those votes going to be enough to, sway the vote of Nigeria? Because I think, 2027 is quite a lengthy period, like I said.
Right.
But the president is hugely unpopular in the East.
Well, suffice to say that Dalore's appointment, at least, still keeps the chairmanship seat in the Northeast, where the vice president, come from. But it remains unresolved at the moment to see. But let's see how it plays out.
The president would always want a merger with the North. They're friendlier to him than the Eastern region. So the North will be the battleground.
Right.
Except a miracle happens.
Well, it will be interesting to see how that plays out. But let's move quickly now to look at the Punch newspaper is next. The biggest one says Wike-Fubara feud. Governor supporters clash over peace deal. Some other headlines there says it's surrender, not reconciliation. That's coming from ex-commissioner. Resolution climax of Tinubu's efforts, says ex-rep member. Let's take a look at some of the other headlines there. Well, take a look at these, where APC National Chairman Ganduje resigned. You can get, of course, the details of that story on the page 4 of the Punch newspaper. Well, we'll talk about the issue of River State and the fact that there's an ongoing, reconciliation by the president himself. And if you look at Fubara, of course, with Wike, it's been a long drawn battle. And now it seems to have come to an end. But what we're seeing is that there's still maybe a silent war between the supporters of these two gladiators. But again, the question is whether there will be a silent war that we don't know whether we're seeing that, this is what we're seeing, that there's a clash between the supporters. But again, the second question is perhaps is this a strategy, ahead of the 2025 to also win Rivers State? Because some people are saying now with these, put to rest, maybe we should expect perhaps some breaking news from Rivers soon.
Well, the president cannot afford to lose Rivers State. And the fight in Rivers State is all about the spoils of war. And the gentleman, Fubara, was warned, he was put on notice about the nature of the person he was dealing with. And he ought to know better. He was his accountant general.
That's right.
He ought to know how to manage his master, but he failed woefully. When he dared to cross the Rubicon, he should have known that there was no turning back. And he ought to have, tried to decimate the forces of the former governor. But unfortunately for him, the former governor was even put in a more vantage position where he has his own funding from the FCT. So he was able to keep on creating a lot of ruckus in River State. As you can see, the supporters, the political supporters of both parties, even though their masters seem to have been reconciled and the president has now waded in, right, which he ought to have done from the beginning, and he didn't take a very decisive decision. I know he called him for a meeting.
Yes, I think in last year, 2024, he did call a reconciliation meeting, which didn't last.
He called for a meeting, and he was not able to prefer a lasting solution to the feud until, things went out of control, so to speak, in Port Harcourt, to be precise. And the president had to now wield the big stake and bring in a military administrator. Fubara is beginning to sound like a politician now. He wasn't a politician before. He was speaking like a civil servant. If you remember, there was this video clips of him in a church giving some sort of address, and it says people should stop praying for him to go back there.
He was never going back.
He wasn't going to go back, and did they even know what he wanted? And they kept pushing him there. But here he is. He's at the presidential villa meeting with his previous boss and the president. Wike also said that. So it's a straight act out of Wike's books, right, where Wike said, I don't want any position, I don't want anybody to give me anything, but he ended up becoming minister of the FCT. So it seems as if the modus operandi in Nigerian politics is to give an indication you're heading towards the right, where, as a matter of fact, you are going to emerge from the left. So people can't second guess what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we'll just move quickly. The Guardian newspaper is next. Take a look at the biggest story there. Screaming headline there. Workers' financial insecurity deepens amid violation of pension law. Let's take a look at some other headlines there. No room for violence in upcoming polls. NSA warns politician, referring to the Anambra governorship poll, and of course the FCT local government poll as well. Well, that's of course the biggest there, but let's also take a look at other ones. Tinubu, other African leaders canvass homegrown solutions to continent economic challenges. Voter education in civil competence, and participatory democracy in Nigeria. You can get the details of that. Uncertainty trails resignation of a Ganduje. You can get the details there when you take a look at the Guardian newspaper. Governor Aliyu reverts May salary to loan payable in 3 months. Of course, that's the biggest story there. And this back to the major story there for conversation. Of course, we saw that a Guardian investigation find that about 19 states of Nigeria's 36 states, some years now behind on the 18% employer-employee contribution mandated by the Pension Reform Act. So they are saying that perhaps the National Pension Commission has issued compliance letters but lacks, prosecutorial, power, leaving labor union to threaten nationwide strikes, which means that a lot of workers are suffering. Some of them have not been paid, so a lot of them are still being owed. So how do we address these issues? Because we understand that more states are getting more funding now, and that's because from the proceed, saved from when the subsidy was removed. So most states are said to be getting more funding. Why do we still have this problem?
It's greediness, and it's a lack of political will from the political leaders. Yeah, the governors and the presidents, the elites, even the National Assembly, they give themselves a generous pension package. And for instance, in Lagos State, I know the governor of Lagos is entitled to have a house in Lagos and a house in Abuja, in a place of his choice, and a couple of other affluent states like that. We saw it happen in Akwa Ibom when the now Senate president was the governor. And when they don't return to the National Assembly or Senate, they pay them a severance package. Everything is jolly good. They take care of themselves. Okay. But when it comes to the workforce itself, there's a huge problem. You have some of the employers not remitting the pension contributions on time. You have people who have worked in governments who have to wait for years, months and years waiting for their pension. You even have it in the military, where they say, oh, come for periodic verification, etc. And you'll be hearing people are not paid for so long. People slump on the lines and all. So basically, there's a lack of political will. Right. But it's not too late to do something. If the government wants to do something about it, you ensure that employers who don't remit the pensions are prosecuted. You ensure that government does this on time. There's more funding with the state governors and everyone now. But if wishes were horses, beggars will ride. We just have a knack for not doing the rightful thing. We even had a pension thief in Nigeria. May I refresh your memory? We had someone who was in charge of pensions who dipped his hands into the till and stole about 2.2 billion or something. Right. With EFCC having to recover houses all over the place. He was in prison. He was arrested with his son. His son pulled a gun on the security forces. Yeah. And they eventually absconded on a U.S. passport. So it was about the only person, high profile big fish, that we've seen who has done jail time for dipping his hands into the pension pot. But there are a lot more of them out there. If government is serious about it, as we've seen in the trial of that man, we would have people who will sit up.
That's right. Let's quickly move as to take a look at some other the front pages of the paper. Say we can trust has this still on Ganduje, how Ganduje was forced to resign. The other one there says desperation, low purchasing power, Nigerians turn to expired goods. That's on the front page of the Weekend Trust there. But let's quickly run to Ghana. Daily Graphic is next. Government to crack down illicit trafficking networks. That's coming from Vice President assuring the nation there. And the front page there also says paper shortage hits birth and death registry. That will be all with the Daily Graphic. And let's head to the UK. Let's start with the Independent. This says Starmer will have to hike taxes to plug £4.5 billion backhole. As Prime Minister's authorities significantly damaged by yet another major policy U-turn, and it counts the cost of backtracking on disability benefits and winter fuel court, leading economists, of course, are warning there. But let's also take a look at some other people, and then we'll get back here. Well, this will drive you mad. Cops waste time probing man for singing flower of Scotland at English railway station, Tartan, Bami. Let's move quickly. The Times is next. NHS, cash linked to success. That's on the front page of the Times there. The Financial Times weekend now has these. Starmer faces £4.25 billion fiscal hit after U-turn. Welfare climbed down, boost tax fees, credibility with investors threatening. That's on the front page of the Financial Times there. And the Daily Mirror has these. Samurai sword horror, love and dignity in face of such evil. That's heartbreaking tribute to amazing son dead and after killers is jail. Well, I think that's it. The Daily Mirror is next. Ex-royal aide blast betrayal of SEA's heroes. Former Special Forces officer backs May's campaign. Britain will bake in 36-degree Celsius heat. Well, that's of course on the front page of the Daily Express. But let's get back to our earlier story, which talked about the fact that the headlines, of course, was referring on the front page of the Independent now was referring to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's abrupt reversal of planned, welfare savings, wiping out about 4.5 billion US dollars in forecast cut. How do you address it?
4.5 billion pounds.
Yes, pounds rather, 4.5 billion pounds. So the question, because some have questioned his direction, and just few weeks from now, of course, they should be marking their 1-year anniversary. And some have said, look, since Labour took over in the UK, has anything really changed in terms of welfare, in terms of taxes, in terms of packages for the workers and all of that? But seems to be that this seems to be an acid test for Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
Well, he's an inexperienced Prime Minister. It's his first year. It was when I was living in the UK. I think he was DPP or something. It comes from the from Crown Prosecution Service, and he's finding out it's a different ball game than standing in the courtroom and arguing compared to running the nation. And you can see the cost of policy reversals, which happens every time over here. I'll tell you a story of a policy reversal example in Nigeria. In 1983, Lagos State was supposed to do the underground rail system to ease the transport mechanisms in Lagos State, so it wouldn't be a burden and everybody should not be on the road, which is what they're now trying to do with the inland waterways, etc. Right. However, there was a military takeover, and they pushed the civilian regime of Alhaji Lateef Jakonde aside. Nigeria had already signed and committed itself to agreements regarding the metropole, the underground thing. It was being done by the French. And then we cancelled. General Buhari then cancelled that. The rumors were that he felt that all parts of Nigeria were not developing at the same rate, and Lagos State was going to get a headshot. As I said, allegedly, it's a rumor. Anyway, do you know that even though we had paid some money up front for them to start that program, after it was cancelled, they took us to arbitration. We paid the full amount. The full amount of the underground system. We paid the full amount. And that's it. We didn't get any real project because we cancelled. But we still had to indemnify the builders. That's what policy reversal does to you if it's not carefully thought out. And Keir Starmer is learning that the hard way,
Well, I hope he learns from this. Thank you so much. Kola Alakbeni is an international human rights lawyer. Thank you for coming on Daybreak.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, and that's what we have time for here on Daybreak. And it's goodbye from me, Frank Komalape. Please keep it here on Arise News.